Honorable Speaker, on a serious note, Majority Leader, when you surrender, and this House is full of competent parliamentarians and members of Parliament.
Honorable Makalimul, I understood the Majority Leader to be saying he will not defend any chairman.
No, let him give us hope. Let him. He's the one who appointed these people. I don't know.
Go on.
Let me come to the petitioner. I must, Honorable Speaker, thank the petitioner. And Honorable Speaker, this matter is a very serious matter in our region. That is the region of Makwiny and Kitui counties, where this road was constructed about 5 years ago, Honorable Speaker. And our people, none of our people has been compensated for the land they donated. And Honorable Speaker, the law is very clear. Where the government acquires land for purposes of public good, it is time they must compensate those who have given out the land. So, Honorable Speaker, I must really thank this petitioner, and I wish this committee, Honorable Speaker, takes this matter up urgently to make sure that our people are compensated. But all said and done, Honorable Speaker, the issue has been also the issue of budget. I also want to urge this House, when it comes to budgeting, to make sure that we allocate resources for compensating Kenyans, not specifically Kitui or Makwiny, but all Kenyans who have actually given out their land for purposes of constructing projects and programs which benefit Kenyans. So with those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I would want to see this committee working very fast to give us a resolution as a House so that we resolve the matter. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the time.
Thank you. Those I give an opportunity, take 2 minutes. Yusuf Hassan, are you? The screen is full as usual. I don't know for what matter. Mwengi Mutuse. Yusuf, why are you queuing for this?
No, for the...
Mwengi Mutuse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The petition partly touches on my constituency. I want to confirm to this House that the petitioner is a person that I know personally. The owners of the parcels of lands that were acquired for purposes of construction of the Rolly Park are also known to me. They are actually my constituents. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, around the 21st of March, I brought a question before this House on the same matter. The question has not been replied to by the Cabinet Secretary for Lands. I have refiled the same question, and the question has not also been replied. And even as we interrogate the petition by the Public Petitions Committee, Mr. Speaker, I will request your indulgence for the purposes of the questions that we have filed before this House, that the Cabinet Secretary may also shed light, because as a Member of Parliament, I had brought a question related to that particular parcel of land. Mr. Speaker, I also want to confirm that the petition is indeed very, very valid, as has been said by the Honorable Makali Molu, that our people gave out their land in 2017 for the construction of the Kibwezi-Kitui Road, 26 of which kilometers are in my constituency. And none of them, including those whose lands were acquired at Kibwezi town for construction of a lorry park, has been compensated. We are made to understand that the National Land Commission has money for that compensation, money that was budgeted for by this Parliament in subsequent years. And we have been wondering why the same is not being given to our people. My request is that the relevant committee, the Public Petitions Committee, would move with speed so that our people may realize their rights. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the petitioner and my people of Kibwezi for bringing the petition before this House.
Didimas. I hope you are queuing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And the petitioner raises very pertinent issues that need to be looked into. And we from the Committee on Transport and Roads, we are ready to work with the Committee on Petitions to have this matter resolved. There are very many Kenyans who had their land forcibly acquired by government. And it is their right, Honorable Speaker, that they must be paid their dues, and there is any slight delay should not be tolerated, Honorable Speaker. And as a House, we must ensure that all those people, plus very many other Kenyans whose land was forcefully acquired by government, they must be compensated as quickly as possible, Honorable Speaker. I support this petition.
Thank you. Honorable members, the petition is committed. Atandi, you want to speak to this? Honorable Atandi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this petition. Honorable Speaker, there are many petitions touching on land compensation, which have not been resolved before this House. One of which concerns a petition concerning compensation in my constituency. Honorable Speaker, you are not attending, but I wanted you to know that there's a road from Siaya Town to Nyadorera to Port Victoria, which was done 20 years ago. And parcels of land which were acquired during that period have not been compensated to date. And so, Honorable Speaker, we want to urge that National Land Commission be urged to be fast-track these matters quickly, because it appears that this commission is sleeping on the job. This is one commission that I don't know what they do. Other than corruption, I think this commission also needs to be checked by this House. The department that is in charge of oversighting this commission needs to check whether this commission is working or is not working. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I have a petition before this committee touching on site-on investments. Honorable Speaker, when we appeared before this committee together with the petitioners, I realized that this petition should have gone to another department, but not this particular committee, because the petition I raised had technical issues which should have been handled by the competent Department of Finance. So, Honorable Speaker, the question of centralizing this petition is something which this House needs to check, so that a petition is taken to a department that is competent enough with the members versed in that department to be able to resolve it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Rep Isiolo. Give her the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to add my input on the same, on matters compensation that continues to affect almost everyone in this country. Mr. Speaker, in my county, we have Horn of Africa Road that passes all the way from Kulamawe to Modogash. To this date, those who have been affected where their lands have been acquired by government are yet to be paid. And Mr. Speaker, this is happening when the roads are already underway in terms of construction. No communication has been given to the locals who have been affected. No discussion on compensation is happening to this date. The locals there have been left, in darkness. We've been visiting National Land Commission every now and then. It's been just a promise after promise. Nothing is happening, and this is a matter that seriously needs to be taken up, because as leaders, we are also looking like we are incompetent as representatives of the people. So my appeal to this House is that this matter be taken up seriously and let the locals be compensated for their lands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me so that I can also add my voice on this issue of compensation. Mr. Speaker, when the government acquires land or property from the owners have no other ways except to surrender that land. They will rely on government valuation. That means they will not even get the kind of value they would wish to get, Mr. Speaker. And then when the government and authorities in government delay in effecting compensation, Mr. Speaker, we are not doing justice to the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, Soin Korudam, which is a massive project that is being done between Sigawit Soin constituency and the Moron constituency, the land was forcefully acquired about 10 years ago. To date, Mr. Speaker, the majority of the landowners in that constituency, in that project, have not been compensated. So I want to thank Mr. Makwata Ibrahim for bringing this issue to Parliament, and I want to ask that his case, Mr. Speaker, is processed promptly and expeditiously, as competent authorities in government also do the same when it comes to compensation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mwafrika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to enrich what one member said about these compensations, that the cabinet minister should come and answer questions related to these petitions. Because normally, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Roads is the one which does the compulsory acquisition. And then it hands over money which is supposed to be compensated to the owners of the land, to the Minister of Land. Because it is the Minister of Land which knows who are the owners of the land. So that is why, after the compulsory acquisition by the Minister of Transport, the money is handed over to the Minister of Land. Mr. Speaker, in a case whereby there is difficulty to compensate land, in most cases you find that those lands have issues. Maybe they have court cases because of ownership. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support that the minister, the cabinet secretary of lands is supposed to come to this house and answer to these questions relating to the petitions and the compulsory acquired compensation, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Member for cases.
NLC has been mentioned by Honorable Attorney, and I oversight NLC and the Committee of Constitution Oversight. And I wanted to comment something.
Thank you so much. I also want to rise in support of the petition on compensation and to raise a matter with Ketraco, which have constructed main lines from Lesos to Nakuru, touches on the lands at Jeboror Farm, and up to now the line has been commissioned and yet compensation is yet to be done. Now the community, the landowners cannot utilize the land, but then their compensation are yet to be done. So I want to ask that the committee for petition should also look into this matter and ensure that the farmers are compensated well accordingly for the purpose and for the land that they have ceded to Ketraco. Thank you so much.
Wamchomba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to bring to the House the concern that has been raised by one Honorable Atadi concerning the National Lands Commission. And he has put it that the department that oversights National Land Commission need to up their game in terms of oversight, because there is so much backlog that is on the table that is supposed to be tackled by the National Land Commission. Mr. Speaker, I rise as a chair of a committee that oversights implementation of the Constitution. And I appreciate that we have had a meeting with the NLC to understand the predicaments that are within their process of implementation of the work that is ahead of them. And Mr. Speaker, I must confess that this is a commission that is very confused, because they do not know where they're supposed to be reporting to. The other day, they were requested to be reporting to the presidency on activities that surrounds compensation of land. So, Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that needs to be given some special attention, because the confusion is actually going to delay more of the workload that members in this House are complaining about. Compensation of land in preparation for implementation of national government implementation programs. So, Mr. Speaker, as the chair of COIC, I stand to defend NLC, because I know the confusion that is therein is one of the contributors that is making them not execute work as it is supposed to do. And also, because they are not able to be, they are not given ample budgets, they also have a problem because they are not able to meet the expectations of Kenyans, especially when it comes to decentralization of their services.
Thank you. This petition stands committed to the Committee on Public Petitions and report back to the House and to the petitioner in 60 days. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 1st August 2023. Number 1, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement of Kenya universities and colleges, central placement services staff mortgage and car loan scheme for the year ended 30th June 2017 and 2022 and the certificates therein. Number 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement of Kitambo Vocational Training Center for the year ended 30th June 2021 and 2022 and the certificates therein. Number 3, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement of Ahero Vocational Training Center for the year ended 30th June 2021 and 2022 and the certificates therein. Number 4, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement in respect of the following institution for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. A, Archbishop Okoth Vocational Training Center. B, Kadongo Vocational Training Center. C, Washara Vocational Training Center. D, Seme Vocational Training Center. E, Navakolo Training and Vocational College. F, Kipipiri Technical and Vocational College. G, Molo Technical and Vocational College. H, Mochongoi Technical and Vocational College. I, Dr. Daniel Wako Morende Technical and Vocational College. J, Naivasha Technical and Vocational College. K, Mwala Technical and Vocational College. L, Kajiado East Technical and Vocational College. M, Kajiado West Technical and Vocational College. N, Kadenge Technical and Vocational Training College. O, St. Paul's Kibabi Diploma Teachers Training College. P, Lugari Diploma Teachers Training College. Q, Masinga Technical and Vocational Training College. R, Nu Technical and Vocational College. S, Moi Teachers College, Baringo. T, SOT Technical Training Institute. U, Bondo Technical Training Institute. V, PC Kinyajui Technical Training Institute. W, Machakos Technical Institute for Blind. X, Simlo Seeds Uganda Limited. Y, Kenya National Assurance Company 2001 Limited. And Kenya Wildlife Services. Performance audit report of the Auditor General on deficit financing operations by the National Treasury for July 2023. 6, reports of the Auditor General on forensic review of procurement and management of power purchase agreements, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, PLC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Committee on Delegated Legislation. Chepkonga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. Today, Tuesday, 1st August 2013, the report of Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the exercise duty amendment regulations 2023, legal notice number 40 of 2023. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you have part Roman B on that? Huh? Oh, next order. For members, before we go to the next, allow me to acknowledge the following schools in both the public and speakers gallery. Endao Solai Primary School, Subukia, Nakuru. Central Primary School, Saboti, Trans Nzoia. Nzalai Secondary School, Mwingi West, Kitui. Chwele Academy, Kabuchai, Bungoma. Ngenia Primary School, Laikipia North, Laikipia. On your behalf, honorable members, and my own behalf, I welcome the schools and the students, their teachers, to the House of Parliament. I've been asked by the member for Kabuchai for a minute. On behalf of your school and all other schools, welcome them to the House of Parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me this time to welcome all these very good schools to this House. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I also take this time also to thank you, because it is during your time when you are member of Parliament for Sirisia constituency and Minister of Foreign Affairs, that this very good school, Joel Academy, was initiated through your guidance, Mr. Speaker. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving us this good brains in our constituency called Kabuchai and any other school that has come to this House. So, Speaker, the performance of this school is exemplary good like yourself. This school, Mr. Speaker, came third in the entire Western Province, hammering 388 marks as a mini score. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, because this school rests in my constituency. I'm delighted to welcome them to this House. And they now see how I speak English on the floor of the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chepkonga.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have two motions to move. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Excise Duty Amendment Regulations 2023 laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 1st August 2023, approves Excise Duty Amendment Regulations published as legal notice number 40 of 2023. Honorable Speaker, can I move the next motion?
Yes.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That pursuant to the provisions of Section 15, subsection 3 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, relating to the extension of period of handling statutory instruments by National Assembly, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the following statutory instruments by a period of 21 days. 1, the National Cereals and Produce Board National Strategic Reserve Regulation 2023, legal notice number 25 of 2023, with effect from 1st August 2023. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, the Universities Regulations 2023, legal notice number 56 of 2023, with effect from the 17th of August 2023. And third and finally, Access to Information General Regulations 2023, legal notice number 57 of 2023, with effect from 17th of August 2023. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chepkonga. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
The Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi, Captain Bunge Golf Team.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Orders 43.1, I wish to make a statement on the participation of the Bunge Golf Team in the Uganda-Kenya bilateral golf tournament hosted by the Parliament of Uganda Golf Team. Honorable Speaker, Parliament of Kenya has, through the Parliamentary Service Commission, incorporated sport as one of the activities aimed at enhancing wellness among members and staff, while also entrenching institutional teamwork, unity and collaborations. Sport play vital role in fostering unity, discipline and healthy competition, not only within our region, but also among members of Parliament and the staff in the East Africa community. To this end, our Parliament embraced the sporting activities as one of the avenues for promoting parliamentary democracy and deepening cooperation among the East Africa community partner states. Honorable Speaker, further, In line with the promotion of parliamentary diplomacy and the regional integration through sport, I'm honored to report to this House that the Bunge golf team participated in a friendly golf tournament in Entebbe, Uganda between 21st to 27th May 2023 under the auspices of Parliament of Uganda Parliament golf team. The team gallantly staged a strong challenge and emerged runners-up in the prestigious tournament and produced the best female and male golfers of the tournament. Indeed, our sportsmen and women demonstrated a true spirit of resilience and determination that serve as an inspiration to others to enable emulate in pursuing excellence. As the Bunge golf team captain, I am proud of our golfers for their commitment to the game and dedication that brought glory to our institution. Honorable Speaker, the outstanding achievement by the team would not have been possible without your unwavering support as a passionate sport enthusiast to the team in the endeavors. With your indulgence, I invite members to join us in commending the Bunge golf team for its exemplary performance. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Indigiri, and on behalf of the House, I want to congratulate the team for the exemplary performance. Indeed, the big cup that you won in Kampala, you came and presented to Mr. Speaker, and the victory and pride is not just for the team, but for the entire Parliament. Well done. Member for Ganze, Honorable Tungule Kenneth Kazungu. Give Honorable Kazungu the mic. He's over there. There you are, Honorable Kazungu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. This is a request for statement regarding the human-wildlife conflicts in parts of Ganze constituency. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44-2, into brackets C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Tourism and Wildlife regarding the serious human-wildlife conflict currently being experienced in parts of Ganze constituency. Honorable Speaker, in the recent past, Mitangani, Bamba, Bandari, Ndigiria, Mrimwandege, and Mahera locations in Ganze constituency are experiencing an influx of unprecedented large herds of elephants invading farms and residential areas. The said areas received rains after a debilitating drought that lasted for 7 consecutive seasons. Honorable Speaker, this matter was reported to KWS officers stationed in Gede, Malindi, whose response have been very lethargic. As a result, for the last 3 months, elephants have been roaming freely in residential and agricultural areas with no meaningful intervention by KWS. Honorable Speaker, the school attendance has dropped almost by half in schools like Migujini, Midoina, Jira, Rimarapera, Mitangani, and Mlagoni primary schools, owing to this menace, and as it is too risky for students to walk to school, even those who attend school classes start late in the morning and close early to enable students to be home before dusk. Honorable Speaker, a number of lives have also been lost as a result of this menace. 2 persons, namely Safari Luganje Kaviha of ID number 20902603 from Makolongoni village, Mwangea sublocation, Mwahera location, and Kalume Tambo Karisa of ID 28611788 from Kaziweni village, Mariango sublocation, Bamba location, were killed by stray elephants on the 27th and 28th July this year, respectively. Honorable Speaker, it is against this backdrop that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Tourism and Wildlife on the following. 1. Could the chairperson state the measures that the ministry is taking to ensure that the herds of elephants are returned back to the Tsavo or other conservation areas? 2. Could the chairperson state how soon KWS will compensate all those whose farms and crops were destroyed and the families of those who lost their loved ones? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, report on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption and Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption meeting.
Leader of delegation, Honorable Shakil Shabir, you may proceed to move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, between the 8th and 9th of March, this Parliament, through your wisdom, sent a delegation from APNAC to the 2022-23 Parliamentary Dialogue.
Can you give the member the mic? Okay, go on.
Sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the motion under item 8, the report on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, and the Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption GOPAC meeting in March 2023 held in Doha. I beg to move this report.
No, I beg to move the following motion.
Yes, sorry, beg your
Then
pardon.
read the motion as it is.
Yes, sir.
Then start telling the House what it is all about.
I beg to move this motion as it is.
No. Read the motion as it is on the order paper. Give him the mic. I beg to move
sorry,
the
Mr.
following
Speaker,
motion.
sir.
Yes.
I beg to move the motion that this House notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the Parliamentary Dialogue on United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, and the Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption Annual General Meeting held in Doha, Qatar, from the 8th to the 9th of March 2023, as laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 26th of April, 2023, sir.
Excellent. Now proceed to elucidate your facts.
Thank you, your Speaker, sir. I should have known that. I beg your apologies of my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, sir, the world over, the cancer of corruption has been exponentially spread in developing countries with devastating socio-economic and governance consequences. It persists in developing countries despite the proliferation of legal and institutional and other measures that have been put into place to fight corruption. In mitigation, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption was initiated in 2003 and has been recognized as a reference framework for the fight against corruption. Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya was one of the first countries who signed this convention. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption implementation requires the participation of political stakeholders such as GOPAC and APNAC and reflects the conviction of the state parties that the anti-corruption measures should be embedded and coordinated in policies instead of being carried out in isolation or in an ad hoc manner. It is against this background of the 2023 Doha Dialogue was organized to address the underlying issues of Parliament and parliamentarians' engagement with the UNCAC. The event drew a strong focus on implementation and good practices to address corruption by parliamentarians, especially GOPAC and APNAC parliamentarians. It was the following observations were raised: that the implementation of the UNCAC provisions are weak, that the international cooperation at best, especially with regard to money laundering, asset recovery, asset declaration, and beneficial ownership, is also weak, that the funding of the major anti-corruption activities in developing countries is weak and inconsistent, that the restrictions on the participation of civil societies and media are increasing, that APNAC Kenya was applauded for the pace-setting activities carried out to strengthen the capacity of Kenyan parliamentarians and the executive institutions to prevent corruption and prevent and combat corruption. In this regard, the Speaker of the National Assembly was congratulated and awarded a prestigious award in honor of his efforts to unite Kenya legislators against corruption. Mr. Speaker, sir, APNAC, which is African Parliamentarians Against Corruption, is one of the oldest caucuses in Parliament since 1999, and we have a number of parliamentarians who are members, and we feel very strongly that every parliamentarian has a desire to fight corruption, and we welcome their initiatives. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time for the international community to seriously explore establishing a permanent anti-corruption council similar to that of the Human Rights Council at the United Nations. Mr. Speaker, sir, the leadership of Kenya is urged to strengthen the initiatives and activities that promote ethical values, integrity, transparency, good governance, and patriotism, enforcing them in the education framework to develop the mindset and attitudes of Kenyans, especially school-going children and youth. Mr. Speaker, adopting the Republic of Rwanda model, the Kenya members of parliament who have actually headed this fight against corruption in the whole of Africa and should have the capacity and enhanced through regular training in sessions and in collaboration with the Ombudsman Office and the Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority. Mr. Speaker, sir, members of APNAC have been facilitated through your good office to promote transparency and accountability and good governance among not only parliamentarians among themselves, but at the national and international level. APNAC Kenya chapter engages as many parliamentarians as possible, and as I said, all members of parliament are our members. We have 30 or so active members. APNAC Kenya should expand its activities to include promotional cultural and Christian and Muslim values to enforce them in the mindset. The parliamentary leadership at the office of the Honorable Speaker should promote the role of parliamentarians and other legislative bodies in the management of public financing. There is need to work harder to demonstrate that parliamentarian oversight is needed during the outside emergency crisis. And the Kenyan Parliament was actually applauded for the work that they have done in APNAC. Mr. Speaker, sir, the members who went to this particular workshop, who attended the workshop and represented the Parliament so well, were myself as the leader of the delegation. We had Mr. Bernard Kitur as one of the members, and a third member, which the name where is it? I've lost that particular. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the long and short of this is that APNAC is a strong caucus of Parliament, and we plead with members of Parliament to support us in all our activities, both within Parliament and nationally. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleague, Honorable Nyekal, to second me in this motion.
Honorable Nyekal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support that the House notes the report of this team, this delegation.
For purposes of record, you rise to second the motion, not to support.
stand corrected. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion that the House notes the report of this delegation. Mr. Speaker, in this country, the two biggest enemies we have are actually corruption and nepotism, that we often call tribalism in the common parlance. Mr. Speaker, that we have a body of parliamentarians.
Order, honorable members, the conversations are far too loud. We can barely hear what the distinguished member for Seme is saying.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion that this House notes the report of this delegation because, Mr. Speaker, in this country, corruption and tribalism are the biggest enemies that if we can conquer them, this country will fly in all terms, economic development and all forms of growth. That we have a group of parliamentarians that have come as a caucus to fight this is commendable. That this delegation went to an international meeting, workshop, and what were noted, Mr. Speaker, is actually interesting and it's important for us to note that actually from the workshop they noted that the corruption is increasing, that the implementation of the international conventions are weak, that the international cooperation against corruption is especially weak and is not supported in areas such as money laundering, asset recovery, asset declaration, and beneficial ownership, which are extremely important in fighting corruption. It doesn't matter how people are taken to court and charged. If the proceeds of corruption are not dealt with, if the processes like money laundering are not dealt with, if the assets that they enjoy are not dealt with, will not go far. Mr. Speaker, it was also important, it was noted in this workshop that the activities of the civil society on corruption is actually weak. This is interesting if we look at how active the civil societies are when they're talking about human rights, if they're talking about transitions of government and so on. So that is an interesting. Mr. Speaker, in this workshop, they actually noted that Kenyan Parliament has done a lot, particularly under your leadership, to strengthen this caucus of parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, with all that, one would expect that actually we will be leading in fighting corruption. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we should not only note the contents of this report, we should actually move and work and bring even motions to actually strengthen this. And therefore, I support even the recommendations that all the activities we have in Parliament, starting from the budget, going to audit, and in our committees, we can actually fight corruption. And Mr. Speaker, it is time that we also pushed internationally that corruption is fought in the same way that we fight human rights violations. We should even have an international court actually dedicated to corruption. And Mr. Speaker, if we mention Rwanda as a country, this is one of our East African states within our region, and if we can come up in this country and actually mention that, what stops us from emulating what is happening there and actually fighting corruption? So, Mr. Speaker, I support this report, and I think as members of Parliament, it is upon us, it behoves us, that all the ills we fight in this country, the one that we should put our effort on most is actually corruption. With that, Mr. Speaker, I second.
Thank you, Honorable Nyikal. Order, honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that this House notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the Parliamentary Dialogue on United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, and Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption, GOPAC, annual general meeting held in Doha, Qatar, from 8th to 9th March 2023, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 26th April 2023. Yes, Honorable Ichungwa.
No, Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry to raise this now. But Honorable Speaker, you notice when you are up on your feet, there are members who are standing and conversing in very, very loudly, Honorable Speaker. And Speaker, I also noticed last week, I think we are now making the National Assembly look like a village marketplace, not even a marketplace, because there are some markets that are very decent, people are also quiet. When members speak to stand, Honorable Speaker, there are members who have made it a habit of heckling and shouting and never allowing other members to speak. Honorable Speaker, now what worries me is that you are on your feet and there's a group of members conversing in vernacular behind here. Another group at the corner there also conversing very loudly and we can hardly hear you. Honorable Speaker, I just want to ask you and the chairs who sit on your seat when you are not, the substantive speaker is not on his seat, that we exercise firmness in how we transact business on the floor of the House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you noticed last week on Thursday or Wednesday, I think it was on Thursday, when we had the adjournment motion, the Honorable Rosa Buyu rose from her seat where the Honorable Karoli Omondi is seated today and walked to the front menacingly. Fortunately, I am not Sabina Sheke. I could not stop from saying what I was saying. But there are members, Honorable Speaker, who will not have the courage to continue speaking. And you see, when people shout at you when you are speaking, people tend to lose their trail of thought, and members get derailed from being able to debate. And we must make this house a house of debate. It is very embarrassing when you cut out your name in this house, Honorable Speaker, that the best thing you can do is open your mouth, shout, and heckle at each other. It's an embarrassment to the people who have elected you, that they elected you to come to a debating house, a debating chamber to debate, and they chose you amongst many other Kenyans who are vying for that position. So I just want, and I don't want to name names, Honorable Speaker, but they are known. Those who have made it a habit of heckling, shouting, they are those who hold that trophy in this house. Honorable Speaker, it's also unfortunate that they are learning, some of our new members are learning from veterans of the House, members who have been here for a long time. I struggle, Honorable Speaker, when members on this side, when the leader, for instance, is speaking, and you bear me witness, there are members who are tempted to shout him down, and I told them to allow him to say what he has to say. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to beg that you help us to restore the dignity of this house, because every day it is sinking to new laws. And it is sad when it is members who are making us look like we are in a marketplace. Honorable Speaker, it worries me now that it has begun with when members are speaking. Now, even when the Speaker is on his feet, members are still standing, walking around and conversing. And it is not fair, Honorable Speaker, not to you, but to the dignity and honor of this House. Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to beg that you also implore on the Speaker's panel members to be firm. There is no reason why a member should rise from their place to go and attempt to stop the Honorable Pio Andai from criticizing government, because he is the leader of minority and that is his work. He has no other work. The same with me. I have no other work but to push government business on the floor of this house. And whether you like my voice, whether you like my looks, whether you like what I am saying, hold your horses. You don't have to like me. And you don't even need to like what I am saying or what the Honorable Pio and I is saying, or what I particularly never like anything Robert Mbui says. But I allow him to say it, and I will have the time to respond. Honorable Speaker, I just want to beg that we restore the dignity and honor of the people who have elected us to come and represent them. I don't think there is any Kenyan who elected a member of parliament to come to the house and heckle other members. There are places to heckle in markets and bars and other places. If you want to mourn, you can go mourn in funerals. Not here, Honorable Speaker. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg that you do guide the House and guide the chairs of the Speaker's panel not to tolerate. I particularly liked what you did, the action you took against a number of members on the incident between Sabina Chege and a few members. But Honorable Speaker, I would beg that that becomes the norm, not the exception now, so that we restore the dignity and respect for each other and also respect for the House, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable, that should not elicit debate. I just want to echo what the majority leader said. For the first time last week, I sat in my chamber and watched with horror as a member who I had given the privilege to move a motion of adjournment literally made it impossible for members to debate her own motion. That is a very strange happening. I've also noted, regrettably, members who just walk across the aisle as if they don't know the standing orders, members who stand on end, conversing very loudly. Under our Constitution, there are two official languages, English and Kiswahili. So when you enter this chamber, you cease being a member of your ethnic community. You become a member of the National Assembly of Kenya, and your duty is to correspond in this House in only two languages, English and Kiswahili. That's why you see your Speaker, who is acknowledged to be a good speaker of English and good English, prays in this House in Kiswahili to demonstrate that that is our alternative language in this country. So I want to beseech you, members. You know, in the old days in African societies, errant behavior was largely the preserve of men. Regrettably, in this House, errant behavior is being the preserve of our good ladies. It is very embarrassing. I don't want to name any names, but I sat in horror to see members standing from where they sit and rushing to the dispatch table, rushing to the clerks, menacing other members. And I liked what the minority leader responded to one of the members. He said, "Your menacing behavior will not stop me from making my point." And he made his point, and it went down very well. Honorable members, you carry the dignity of the people who elected you. Even if you don't respect yourself, respect those who elected you, because they gave you an opportunity to carry a title honorable. And if you are honorable and you behave in a dishonorable manner, then you don't deserve the opportunity you have been given by the good people of this country. Your right to speak must correspond with your duty to listen. That's what debate is all about. And I want to hope that moving forward, the majority leader, minority leader, rein in your troops. I know that politics sometimes makes people take leave of their senses. depending on certain situations. But that should be a rare exception in your life. You can imagine those children in the galleries seeing you, who is old enough to be their mother, or their father, or their brother, or their sister, behaving in a manner that is so erratic that nobody expects that behavior from you. Let's keep the dignity of this house. Those who want to converse, and nobody will stop you from talking in your mother tongue. There are very many allies out there you can go and discuss, finish, and come back. But let's keep this house in good order. Thank you. The screen is full. I don't know if it is about this motion. Victor Koech. If you are on the screen and you do not want to speak on this motion, you surrender the opportunity to somebody else. I surrender. Honorable Wandai. Wandai, before you speak, allow me to acknowledge the schools in the gallery. In the speaker's gallery, we have Pleasant View Senior Girls Secondary School from Githunguri, Kiambu. We have Mwala Girls High School, Mwala, Machakos. And we have Mirbera or Mirzera High School, Naivasha, Nakuru. Members, on your behalf and on my own behalf, I welcome the students and their teachers of the House of Parliament. And Wandai, on behalf of the House, as you start contributing, you can welcome the schools.
Honorable Speaker, let me also join you in welcoming the students from the various schools who are sitting in the galleries of Parliament. Wish them a fruitful tour of the House of Parliament and hope that they will take home some learnings at the end of this rare tour that they're making. Mr. Speaker, I will be contributing shortly on this issue, but I want to agree with you and the Honorable Chungwa on what you've just said. The need for order in the House can never be overemphasized, really. And on a lighter note, Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, I think Thursday, yes, that same day, was the first time I saw when a quorum bell was being rung. I want the Speaker to listen to me, Honorable Wamboka. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in my history in this Parliament, I saw when the quorum bell was being rung, members trooping out of the chambers. Instead of trooping back to the chambers. It is something that's never been witnessed in the history of this Parliament for as long as I've been here. Until the benches on the majority side became empty, totally empty. Of course, as a way of frustrating the debate on the motion. Yeah, but that's something we need to deal with in future, because again, it's a standing orders. Mr. Speaker, let me support this motion. The motion on the report of the delegation, okay, that went to this meeting in Doha, Qatar. The delegation of members of APNAC. APNAC, for members who don't know, is the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption. Mr. Speaker, I must confess that I've been a very active member of APNAC, at least until this Parliament. And I had an occasion in the 11th Parliament to represent APNAC Kenya at a meeting in Chad. I remember that time. Yeah. And one of the things I must acknowledge is that APNAC, just like other caucuses that deal with the matter of corruption, is a very important entity. And I must thank the chairman. The Honorable Shakil Shabir has been chairman now for quite some time. The fight against corruption requires not only goodwill, but demonstrable actions from the leadership of the country. And this House comprises of people who are at the apex of the leadership of this country. And therefore, if we take up the matter of the fight against corruption head on and more seriously, I am sure the whole country can take cue. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want APNAC now to move from talk to action. From talk to action. And the fight against corruption must start with action from ourselves as leadership of the country. We can no longer just be talking about the fight against corruption as a pastime. We must demonstrate not only to the country but to the whole world that Kenyan parliamentarians truly believe in the fight against corruption. Truly believe in the fight against corruption. I must acknowledge that at least for the 10 or so months, this now 10 months I think, since this parliament began, we haven't had cases of members being hauled to courtrooms on matters of corruption. I know, of course, in the past one would argue that corruption charges were being used as a political tool. Be that as it may, whenever members of parliament are hauled to courtrooms on charges of corruption, it sends very, very bad signals to the country. That those who should be at the forefront in fighting corruption are the ones who are being accused of being involved in corruption. And this House has got the capacity and indeed obligation to compel the executive to also take a lead in the fight against corruption. So what am I saying in short? That APNAC requires support, but even to support it, it will be important for members, all members of parliament, if possible, to join in APNAC as active members, to demonstrate our faith in APNAC, but also to show the whole world that the Kenyan parliamentarians really believe in the fight against corruption. Because corruption remains one of the single biggest threats to the existence of this country. Corruption is a cancer that, if not checked, if not tackled, can actually eat the entire fabric of the nation. The entire fabric of the nation. So I want to commend the chairman of APNAC, my good friend Honorable Shakil Shabir, and members of APNAC who are active, and indeed the membership of GOPAC, that is the Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption, to which we belong as APNAC Kenya. And indeed I'm being told that the Honorable Shakil Shabir is a member of the board of GOPAC. Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker now, sorry. Madam Speaker, in the 12th Parliament, when I was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I was also privileged to be the Secretary General of the African Organization of Public Accounts Committees, AFROPAC, which also has similar objectives as APNAC in the fight against corruption. So I would want to encourage members of parliament and my colleagues to please enlist yourselves in these caucuses, in these organizations that deal with corruption, so that at least the whole country and the whole world can know that Kenyan parliamentarians are serious with the fight against corruption. As I conclude, you know, corruption in this country is budgeted for a long time. Corruption in this country is budgeted for a long time. How I wish that culture of budgeted corruption comes to a stop, comes to an end. We have got enough resources in this country that can take care of all our needs if only we dealt with the pilferage and wanton misuse of resources by those who are charged with the responsibility of taking care of these resources on behalf of the people of Kenya. Wastage, pilferage, is one of the biggest issues that we face as a country. If you are keen enough and you happen to read any report of the Public Accounts Committee, you will notice that those state departments, those agencies, those commissions that deal with matters of project procurement are where corruption is domiciled. Corruption follows budget. Once you budget for projects and you don't deal with the matter of budgetary corruption, you will be breeding corruption. It is quite clear. Those agencies, those departments of state that have got little or no budget for capital projects, you will rarely see any case of corruption. But where there are projects to be procured, that is the home of corruption. And therefore, I will be appealing to my colleagues that let us lead by example on this front. Thank you. I support.
Let me recognize the schools first, then you'll go. I wish to recognize in the public gallery the following schools: Tongoya Secondary School from Mwea constituency, Kirinyaga County; Father Khan Academy from Chesumei constituency, Nandi County; Londiani Girls High School from Kipkelion East constituency, Kericho County; Made in the Streets Primary School from Kasarani constituency, Nairobi County. Welcome. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me begin by thanking the Honorable Shakir Shabir for tabling this report and ably moving for its adoption. Honorable Speaker, as the Honorable Leader of Minority has noted, the Honorable Shakir has been leading APNAC and GOPAC for a very long time. And I want to encourage the Honorable Shakir Shabir to now enlist. In fact, I was asking him who is seconding the motion, and I had hoped that he would get one of our new members, but he told me he had asked the Honorable Bernard Kitur to second. Unfortunately, I think the Honorable Bernard Kitur was too busy elsewhere, so he was not available. But I was encouraging Honorable Shakir to enlist more of the new members into these organizations, both APNAC and GOPAC. And also to encourage, Honorable Speaker, the institutionalization of all these setups, both APNAC and GOPAC, and also the parliamentary network on the World Bank, and also the parliamentarians for global action. And Honorable Speaker, to also have bicameral representation as we institutionalize all these associations, so that being that we are in a bicameral parliament, when we attend all these international conferences, we don't do so as the National Assembly, but we attend as the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. So that whatever resolutions that come out of all these associations, whether it's APNAC, whether it's GOPAC, whether it's a parliamentary network for global action on World Bank, we have a bicameral approach, so that if there are legislative interventions to be done, you find it much easier for the Honorable Shakir to propose any legislative proposals on matters to do with corruption and other issues if there is bicameral representation in all these organizations. And I would really want to encourage the Honorable Shakir, even as I commend him for the work, to ensure that we institutionalize all these organizations and have that bicameral approach. Honorable Speaker, if you read through the report, Honorable Speaker, you see the various recommendations that they are making, and especially on facilitating APNAC to be able to promote transparency, accountability, and good governance among us parliamentarians, both at a national level and also at our county levels or even community leaders, Honorable Speaker. And I cannot agree more with the members of this organization that we must have a very clear framework on how, as Parliament, we will promote transparency and accountability. Honorable Speaker, it is in view of such desires that the National Assembly and the Senate, under this administration, were able to review our own standing orders to allow cabinet secretaries to appear before the House, as they will do tomorrow afternoon on Wednesdays, to come and be accountable to the people through their elected representatives. But Honorable Speaker, you notice few of us actively participate in that process, and I want to take this opportunity to encourage members, as I did on Thursday during the normal statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, to, one, enlist questions that we enhance transparency in how government does its work in the ministries, and also, more importantly, to hold cabinet secretaries and those serving in the executive accountable of all their actions, and even in the implementation of the budgets that we appropriate here and we pass, but whose implementation we leave to the executive. Honorable Speaker, that being so, it must not be lost on us that we cannot just be talking about corruption. And I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, that we have an administration now that does not only speak about corruption, but acts on corruption and any incidences of corruption. And I think Kenyans will bear us witness that the President has been very resolute to speak less and act more on issues to do with corruption. And that is how to deal with corruption. In the past, Honorable Speaker, we have seen incidences where from the highest office, and I remember in 2018 or 2017, Honorable Speaker, during the State of the Nation address, where a whole 200 members of the cabinet, civil servants, were asked to step aside on suspicion of matters to do with corruption. But of all those 200 public officers that were asked to step aside, not a single officer was ever charged in court over corruption. Because we had a regime that believed in speaking about corruption and never acting on corruption. And it was no coincidence, Honorable Speaker, when you find people speaking too much about corruption, at times, they are the most corrupt people. Those who shout loudest about fighting corruption are usually the most corrupt, Honorable Speaker. And I think Kenyans would bear us witness also that indeed, from the activities of the last regime with state capture, the highest form of corruption is state capture. And I know the Honorable Karoli Omondi has a motion on establishment of a state capture commission. And I want to encourage the Honorable Karoli Omondi to aggressively pursue that motion so that we have a state capture commission that is the beginning of dealing with matters to do with corruption. Honorable Speaker, we keep talking about corruption when we see police officers collecting bribes on the roads, or county government officers walking around their estates collecting bribes. But we forget that the fish, as we say, starts rotting from the head. That is a problem in Kenya. The country started rotting from the head when we made state capture normal. We normalized state capture. And it became normal that 1 or 2 or 3 people and their families could capture the state and ensure from public procurement to implementation of government projects to formulation of government policy is geared towards private business interests, not the greater public good. Honorable Speaker, that is where we must begin, and I want to encourage the Honorable Shakir Shabir, even within GOPAC and ACPAC, to ensure, because this is not a problem that is unique to Kenya. The world over, even in the most developed countries, states are captured by those who are in power. But we have a duty and a responsibility as parliamentarians to support such organizations to ensure that we do not normalize corruption by normalizing state capture, Honorable Speaker. And that's why I said I must commend President William Ruto, because he has shown by action how you deal with corruption. You don't issue ultimatums. You don't threaten people. You don't need to bang tables. You just need to act on corruption, and the message will be sent to public officers that there is zero tolerance to corruption, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, as I encourage the Honorable Shabir and members of this caucus, Honorable Speaker, I also want to ask them to lead from the front. Right from our committees in Parliament. For many years, and Honorable Shakir has been here with me long enough to know members of Parliament serving in committees quite often are accused of rent seeking. To also ensure that we enlist as many members into this organization so that when we talk about the fight against corruption, we are not just talking, but it is something we are practicing even within our own ranks, right from our constituencies to our parliamentary committees, and even in the manner in which we oversight government and those in the executive. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to support, but in conclusion, let me re-emphasize the need to institutionalize all these organizations and to make sure that there is a bicameral approach in their constitution, and to also make sure that the Honorable Shakir, you also don't lead these organizations, all of them together. It is time to encourage the likes of the Honorable Kitur to take up the leadership of another, encourage one of the young senators in the Senate to take up leadership of another, but also these organizations allow also democracy to thrive so that we don't get, in quotes, Mugabe's leading these organizations. You allow the election of members and the leadership of all these organizations and caucuses.
Honorable Member Rikadiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am a member of APNAC, the Organization on Parliamentarians Against Corruption. I've had a basic training and experience in China. I've had experience even in a Kenya situation. Madam Speaker, when we talk about corruption, we are not talking about stealing money. We are also talking about systems and procedures that are applied by people who practice corruption. One of our shortcomings, because we must admit, is, Madam Speaker, we are focused on the national government and quasi-government institution when we are talking about corruption in this country. We have left the county government from the blanket of areas of focus as APNAC. I am asking our chairman and the committee that now we take this institution to the county assemblies. That way, we will be addressing the issue of corruption at the national level and also at the county level. Madam Speaker, we cannot pretend that corruption also is within the government institutions. Far from the truth. We have a lot of corruption activities even in the private sector. But because of democracy and limitations of boundaries, it becomes very difficult for us to aggressively, as a parliament, to focus on private enterprises who participate in areas of corruption. Madam Speaker, in every government institution where tendering and business is done, you always find a private practitioner by way of an engineer, a lawyer, an accountant, a supplier, etc., etc. Madam Speaker, corruption is a serious demon. It actually operates within the lives of even the church organizations. Because you can't, that's why Chakawala is there. So, Madam Speaker, as element of corruption and fighters of corruption, I agree with the views of majority that we need to take this institution at a higher level. Madam Speaker, I am the president of Democracy and Good Governance of the 12 Great Lake countries. And you are going to find one of the problems that we are experiencing is corruption at the international level, being executed by international operators, selling and bringing firearms, trying to interfere with the democracies of African countries. So we are dealing with a very big animal, but it's upon us. I believe the Kenya Parliament has the capacity to move and propagate for serious policies that will help govern the institutions against corruption. I therefore, Madam Speaker, support the report, but I say giving out a report in Parliament is not the best solution to the problem. It's how we are going to implement this report. And I join to say, I think, Senior Shakil, you have done a great work for the many years that you have been there. We ask you to start now creating succession so that now we can have other people have the opportunity of moving with this. Perhaps our speed of moving is not like these other young guys. They can, and they should be given an opportunity. So I thank you, Shakil. I thank Madam Speaker. I support this report, but the implementation is the key thing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kandui, John Makali. Then we'll come to you, Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this report that has been brought by our senior parliamentarian, the Honorable Shakil Shabir. Before I make my remarks on this motion, permit me, Madam Speaker, to congratulate you for turning up in my constituency to encourage the learners and the parents on our Education Day. They actually mandated me to say thank you, and welcome again. To the report, I must thank again the committee, the APNAC committee, for this particular report. We must all agree, Madam Speaker, that corruption is a vice that has destroyed economies, has destroyed families, has destroyed countries, and there must be a concerted effort to fight it from all fronts. From the report, it is clear that this APNAC is constituted of parliamentarians. And as we all know, Madam Speaker, parliamentarians are the representatives of the people. They exercise delegated power, and they have a good forum in which to can be able to champion the fight against corruption. I have looked at the recommendations of the report, and it is heartening, Madam Speaker, from the report that this House, through its Speaker, has been congratulated for taking a front line in the fight against corruption. But as we speak, Madam Speaker, we are not sure about the legal framework that APNAC operates under. I know it is an African Parliamentary Against Corruption, but Madam Speaker, we need to come up with a legislative framework borrowed from APNAC Africa that will be able to champion the fight against corruption from our end. As a new member in this particular House, I will take the gauntlet that has been thrown at our feet, that I will immediately after this, Madam Speaker, enroll in this particular committee so that we can be able to champion the fight against corruption. As has been indicated, there is a lot of corruption that has actually been devolved from the national level to the counties. We need also to have similar organizations at the counties that will be able to fight corruption in the counties, because we realize a lot of corruption networks are undertaken at the counties, specifically through procurement schemes at the county level. Equally,
we must be able to partner with other key players, and specifically the civil society. This is a multifaceted approach, and civil society plays a very, very critical role in spreading awareness and sensitization of our people of the woes of corruption. And this House can play a pioneering role in ensuring that we sensitize our people. Equally, the issue of facilitation and funding. I'm very sure that this committee will not have gone to Doha if this Honorable House had not facilitated or funds had not been set aside for it. This fight requires all of us. And in this fight, we require funding and facilitation to be able to explore all the new forms of corruption that are coming up and mutating in various forms. We need also to look at our structures which we have put in place, specifically the anti-corruption, the economic crimes, the anti-corruption, the Economic Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The efforts that have been put towards it is towards investigation and prosecution. But we need to indicate another area that has not been critically emphasized, and this is the area of ethics. This is ethics and values. We need, as we push legislation in this House, strengthen the institutions that are there to fight corruption, but split it up also to our institutions of learning, specifically our schools, so that we can inculcate ethics in our learners. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I wish to support the report and wish all the best for the team. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Dagoretti North, Honourable Beauty Selachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the report and to appreciate Honourable Shabir, and to really start by saying this, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry. Madam Speaker, today I see young people, they were running all over to register for WorldCoin. And I was asking myself, when I saw the line, all these young Kenyans, really, even if we are talking about corruption today, one of the corruption we should be talking about is how people manipulate and influence to lie, to steal from our own people in terms of different projects that you even wonder, how did this start? How are they given even approvals to be able to start such a thing? And then in the end, Kenyans will just start again crying, the way I'm seeing them crying in the US. An agency decided to take you there. Today you're homeless, you're on the streets. It's in Canada. And I think this is where we have to, when we are talking about corruption, Madam Speaker, in Kenya, I think the first thing we should be asking ourselves is, how do you get approvals? Look at just how we are. Forget about even the things we're saying, oh, it's in the budget. It is in our mind, how we think, Madam Speaker, how we do our stuff, how we just start the designing of that paper, tells you where the paper is headed, how it is going to affect us, but we still continue. And so as much as we are talking about it in Parliament, as much as we have this group, we have open governments, and I want to really thank P.S. Singoe. He has been very steadfast on open governments, and I really want to call upon the counties that are in open government, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet. Let's join him in pushing this agenda also in terms of looking at open governments for governments and how transparent governments must work. But having said that, in this country, when you want to take anything of government, it is the easiest thing to do. And I always say, it is not about how you run the ministry. It's not about the CS or the PS. But Speaker, if you don't start with the officers who start designing the project that is supposed to be done by government, that is where that corruption starts. Until the day we look at it, until the day we accept that indeed we need to come up with a law in this House so that the lobbyists who are doing these projects are given a percentage. Either it's 5% of the project, 10%, I think 10 will be very high, Madam Speaker, but I think 5 or 2.5% can be very good for everyone who runs around with that project to be paid within, so that it becomes something that is very open, and then you stop this thing of now people going down, what is in it for me? So before even you start a project, someone is asking for 10%, and you're wondering, so how will the project indeed move? Will the project be a project that is commensable, or will the project be a project that will last? Look at our airport, Madam Speaker. A project that was done of tents when when the airport got burnt. To date, we are still in the tents. It is our international arrivals. The money that was spent to done the tents is more than 2 billion shillings doing a tent. We are here, now we've come in. The only thing we can do, Madam Speaker, is to plead with CS Murkomen to save us now from that grey thing that we always see when we enter our airport, which was done very wrongly, which was spent a lot of money that would have just built a good thing. You ask yourself, why can't you just build something that can last for 50 years and then do maintenance if we have to have all this eating, Madam Speaker? So, Madam Speaker, it is us as Kenyans, we cannot be benchmarking all over, but we can't do the right thing, Madam Speaker. I plead with this House, let us push those who are doing our projects in this country with huge monies to do something that will be there for generations to come. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to support the report.
The Honourable Member for Marakwet West, Timothy Toroitich. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this substantive motion, that is a report on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption and Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption meeting. Madam Speaker, corruption in this country is a menace. For this country to progress, we must find a decisive way of dealing with corruption. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the mover on the motion, my friend Honorable Shakil, for bringing this motion before the floor of the House. Madam Speaker, I wish to bring to the attention of this House that on the 28th day of July 2023, Professor Nixon Sifuna, sitting as a judge at the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division in the High Court, made a substantive ruling, Madam Speaker, against corruption that it should not escape this House. Madam Speaker, the judge, Honorable Sifuna, pursuant to Section 92 of the POCAMLA Act, that is the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, number 92, 2009, Madam Speaker, made a substantive and unprecedented ruling to the effect that money that has been obtained out of the process of crime that initially was deposited in the Assets Recovery Agency bank account shall now be deposited in the Consolidated Fund account. Madam Speaker, the substance of that ruling is that any amount that has been forfeited by a court of law and initially was deposited in the Assets Recovery Agency Fund account shall now be deposited in the Consolidated Fund account. Madam Speaker, in my opinion, this is a good ruling because initially there is a misconception or there is a belief that money deposited to this agency account has been misappropriated. Madam Speaker, and I call upon the National Treasury because we have the substantive act, but Madam Speaker, we lack the regulations. We have just a minute, Madam Speaker. We call upon the National Treasury to submit regulations to operationalize the Criminal Recovery Fund so that when that fund has been created by this House, then money that has been forfeited by a court of law, being proceeds of corruption, shall be deposited to that recovery fund. Madam Speaker, as we speak, the money that is recovered out of the proceeds of crime is deposited in a bank account opened by the agency. As to how that money is mismanaged, Madam Speaker, is not very clear. So, Madam Speaker, I call upon the National Treasury and the committee of this House dealing with delegated legislation to make sure that that particular regulation is brought in this House so that we have the asset recovery fund account created under regulations so that money that has been forfeited by a court of law, being proceeds of crime, is deposited into that particular account. In my opinion, Mr. Speaker, if that fund account is created, then monies that has been forfeited by a court of law shall not be misappropriated by that particular agency. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to submit on that issue, and I fully support this motion, particularly on the creation of that fund account. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I wish to recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of Garrison Secondary School, Gilgil Constituency, Nakuru County. I also wish to recognize in the public gallery Londiani Township Secondary School from Kipkelion East Constituency, Kericho County, and Londiani Girls High School, Kipkelion East, Kericho County, and Mahindu Primary and Junior Secondary School, Kipipiri, Nyandarua County. On that note, I call upon the Honorable Cherorot Joseph, member for Kipkelion East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to welcome all the students who managed to attend our parliament today. And I want to encourage them that while they are here, they have to learn also the functions of the parliament, and they are most welcome anytime. More so, Madam Speaker, I want to welcome Londiani Girls Secondary School and Londiani Township, who come from my constituency. They are welcome here in Nairobi, and I want to congratulate Londiani Girls because they were the leading in my constituency during the last year exams. They had 6.63, and also Londiani Township also performed well. I want to say that, Madam Speaker, for all those students who have come here, that education is an equalizer. It actually brings together children from the poor family and those from the dynasties. They can sit together in this class and perform. And I want to say that it is also a life-changing. It can change the life of a person and improve their life. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Asante.
Okay, the Honorable Member for Elgeyo Marakwet County, Honorable Ngeleche.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the report by Honorable Shakil. Madam Speaker, at times in this country, we need such bold leaders to speak out and participate in issues that are really affecting us. Madam Speaker, many a times in this country, find that we struggle maybe a lot in vain in so many areas, because the more steps we make forward, you find that issues of corruption take us back double the steps. Madam Speaker, at times we don't even need to toil so much, but we just need to kill the monster that is called corruption. Madam Speaker, you find that we do a lot in this country. We work extra hard. But if we adopt the issue of fighting corruption, we will work a little smart and still achieve the objectives. Madam Speaker, I just want to urge Honorable Shakil that please encourage more members to join your caucus, so that when we have many leaders leading in the fight against corruption, it is better off than having 1, 2, or 3 that participate in the same. Madam Speaker, there are so many wastage in this country as a result of corruption. And especially nowadays when people who are involved in corruption rush to maybe courts of law to bar themselves from being investigated or from the investigating agency from proceeding, you find that so many projects, even from that are done by members of parliament on CDF and other funds, are stalled and money is wasted. Like we have a project in Elgeyo Marakwet, in Marakwet West, that has been lying low for several years, pending investigations. Well, Madam Speaker, if that project, were it not for corruption issue, that project could have benefited thousands of children and the people of Elgeyo Marakwet at large. So, Madam Speaker, I stand to support the report by Honorable Shakil, and I urge other members in this House to make a step to Honorable Shakil and make sure that they also participate in the same, that they also be part of members of parliament on record that will fight corruption. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable, let's see. Yes, I can see her at the top of the page. Yeah, the Honorable Member for Endebess, Dr. Robert Kose.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute this motion. On the onset, I want to declare that I'm a member of ABNAC, and ABNAC is not just an organization of members of parliament who are sitting, but we also have former members of parliament who are members of ABNAC, like the Honorable Musikari Kombo, whom I want to recognize, is a member of ABNAC. I also want to thank my chair, the Honorable Shakil Shabir, for the good work he's been doing in ABNAC. He's been a long-time serving chair of the ABNAC since the 11th Parliament when I knew him, together in the 12th Parliament and now in the 13th Parliament. He's still been our chair. Honorable Shakil has steered this caucus very well, and we can credibly say that ABNAC is a very resourceful organization that the honorable members of this House can be able to get capacitated or capacity building in terms of providing better oversight to the various institutions. Honorable Speaker, matters corruption are not just in terms of not just in terms of stealing. There are also corruption in terms of how we lead the various organizations. There is moral corruption in terms of how do we even organize our parties. There is moral corruption in terms of how do we engage with each other. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the President in the efforts in which he's putting up in fighting corruption. One of them is where beginning today, the President has said all the M-Pesa agents should go into only one M-Pesa account, which is monitored by Treasury. That implies that all the other M-Pesa accounts giving government services ceases from today, and we'll only have one. I think that's a very big effort in the right direction. This morning in State House, the President made a commitment when the cabinet secretaries were signing the performance contracting, and we expect that they'll be able to live and deliver on those services. And these are the services that the Kenya Kwanza promised wananchi during the campaigns. They gave them commitments. And this is not just a commitment between the President and Cabinet Secretaries, but it is between the government of William Ruto and the wananchi and the Kenyans. And Honorable Speaker, with the efforts the government has put in place, we can now, for more than a year, we can now start seeing the inflation is coming down. I was in Transoya yesterday, in Jepchoina, in my constituency. And Honorable Speaker, you look at the amount of food, maize that the Wananchi have grown, based on the subsidy that the government gave, fertilizer subsidy of 3,500. And we expect that the subsidy will even be coming down to 2,000, so that the price of fertilizer will now come to 2,500. Honorable Speaker, the farmers of Transoya in this year expect to harvest pamba harvest. And these farmers, they told me, Honorable Speaker, that we don't expect other people now to start demanding that we should sell at a throwaway price. We want to sell at a good market price. We've never asked our brothers from other regions, especially even from the Nyangsa region, who fish, to sell us fish at a throwaway price. We've never carried sufurias in our heads to demand that the price of fish go down. So they should not carry sufurias in their heads to demand that the price of maize goes down. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Mayaka, nominated member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also stand to support this particular report. And before I do that, I just want to tell the Honorable member who just spoke through you that the carrying of sufurias is usually a figurative demonstration that we do. It doesn't mean that when you're carrying sufurias, that's when the food comes. It is an expression of a complaint that people have. Honorable Speaker, I want to first of all just recommend one of the recommendations that the report and this particular delegation has given on the need for us to have a permanent anti-corruption council that is akin to the Human Rights Council that is globally acceptable. I think this is a very good recommendation that they've made, and I would just like to urge the senior member to go ahead and come up with the particular policies and anything that we need to do to ensure that this is in place. Honorable Speaker, corruption goes hand in hand with bribery. And bribery actually begins from our homes. And how it begins is when, for example, when your young children do not eat, and you tell them that if you eat, I will buy you a sweet. That is already injecting corruption and bribery into those young people. And I just want to urge this particular council, and I hope it is open to membership of more members, that we must start this conversation right from our schools. And we do have school children that are always coming here in Parliament. But this conversation needs to begin from down there so that it is engraved within our society that corruption is not a good thing. Because, Honorable Speaker, we have come into a society where right now, and especially it happens on social media, that people celebrate when people have made quick money out of gains that you're not able to even have a paper trail. And these are fruits of corruption. We have a society where right now we over-sensationalize whenever there is a corruption act, whenever there is a scandal, but our money and our talks and our actions where we want it to actually make gains. Honorable Speaker, today we have seen the President having cabinet secretaries and state department heads signing performance contracts. And I just want to urge the government to ensure that we do have these performance contractuals when they actually do happen, that they be documents that are of public, that the public can easily access. Because we want to see how are our cabinet ministers performing. We want to see in each and every portfolio, in each and every department, where there are corruption issues, how have the people who have been involved in such particular issues been prosecuted? Honorable Speaker, this also needs to just go down to ensure that even at the level of the Public Prosecution Office, that issues and cases of corruption are handled at a faster way, they're fast-tracked, more than the other issues. Because the moment a scandal comes into light, we talk about it, we as a public, we demand that, that these people should be taken to pay for what they've done. But because of the slow nature of the process of anything that goes through the judiciary process, then we don't have these issues being prosecuted as fast as possible. Honorable Speaker, I also just want to say this, that proactive engagement of the society is very important. Even as this particular caucus does its job, even as they go ahead and consult with other countries, both in Africa and the rest of the world, that we also need to just show an example from right here at home. Honorable Speaker, among the recommendations, they did talk about the Rwandan example and how they've been able to facilitate learning and training and enabling members to be able to see which issues they should be able to follow up. Honorable Speaker, right now in our country, we have a lot of our transactions that are paperless. But the one thing that we never do is a forensic audit into our paperless transactions. Who has done a forensic audit and brought it here for us to be able to scrutinize, for example, how IFMIS is being utilized, if the process is being followed to the letter, and especially for those that engage in public institutions, how they're able to do this. I therefore, with those few remarks, want to support the report. I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Garissa Township, Honourable Dallo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise and I stand to support the report. Madam Speaker, we all know corruption is a cancer in this country, and we all agree, all of us as a country, that we have a serious problem in terms of these corruption issues that has been raised. I think for the last 15 or 20 minutes or so, we've been talking about this issue. But as a country, I think we are not honest about this thing. The fight against corruption, we are not honest from the leadership to the people. We are a society that have decided to destroy itself through this cancer. Madam Speaker, if you look at this House itself, as we debate today, as we sit here as a House, many members came in and checked in and walked out. It's still corruption. It doesn't have to be about money. We walk in, we sign, we disappear. That itself, we are setting a very bad precedence for this country. The security lapses we have in this country, Madam Speaker, is as a result of people being recruited or young people being recruited through by paying for the recruitment process. And in fact, the head of the public service today in a meeting admitted that our young people have to part with about between 200 and 400,000 Kenya shillings so that they are recruited into our security systems.
What's your point of order, Honourable Member for Kipipiri?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Honourable Member, I want to know if he's in order to reference that the members clocked and left out, if he cannot substantiate, because Honourable Members have many engagement in the ministries, in the constituency, and in the committees. Some members are still sitting within the environment. I think he's not in order, but you should guide him to substantiate.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. The Honourable Member is, I'm sure she can see for herself what is going on. And she's been a senior member of this House. I don't have to talk about it every now and then. So, Madam Speaker, I don't have to go back to it. As I was saying, it's not about the procurement alone or cash-involved issues.
Your point of order, Honourable Member.
Honourable Speaker, I think the member is ignoring the fact that members have got businesses to transact in the precincts of Parliament. And the fact that members are moving around, some are in the table office, others there is a big line at the Speaker's office. Honourable Speaker, please guide the member accordingly on the issues he has raised. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Garissa. Honourable Member, please proceed, but maybe with
Thank you, Madam. So I was saying, that was just an example I was giving, so I don't want to go back to it. Madam Speaker, as I was saying, it is not about only the procurement processes that, or anything relating to financial transactions. Our country, as a society, it's a society that have embraced corruption. And even if we form a council or whatever name you call it, it will be just another level of entertaining corruption in this country. So, Madam Speaker, as a country, and unless, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves. We can't just be talking about corruption, and as has been said, those who talk very loud about corruption are just trying to justify their cut in the corruption deals that I have seen about it. They have not been included in that deal. That is where they are headed to. So they want to stake up their stake in that particular deal they are talking about. This country is facing a serious problem, and I am sure the only way we can get out of this problem is the fact that, and we see every week, more than 10 people in leadership positions who are convicted either by hanging or by life imprisonment. That is the only time this country can take a different direction on the issue of corruption. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, the Honourable Member for Manyata, John Gitonga. You're number 15, actually. Honourable Wanjala, you're out
Honourable
of order.
Speaker, defend me from
Honourable Wanjala, you're out of order. You can't stand out there and shout. Honourable Member, you're out of order. Please sit down. You will get an opportunity. Like I've told you, you're number 15 on the list. Irene Mayaka, Honourable, has just spoken now. She was sitting right in front of you. Okay, proceed, please. Please proceed.
Honourable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Wanjala, you're out of order. I will send you out of the House.
Honourable Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to rise and say that the issue of corruption is an issue that is very emotive when it is spoken in this country. And Honourable Speaker, among the things that this Parliament should be able to really help and solve for the prosperity of this country and for the goodwill of the people is to ensure that we don't have cases that are just left without our oversight role happening, Honourable Speaker. The issue of corruption has been used to in politics, and also, Honourable Speaker, has been one of the impending issues for the development of this country. We have so many corruption cases, Honourable Speaker, that up to date, they have never been closed. We have the issue of COVID billionaires who took money when Kenyans were reeling in problematic diseases and closed businesses. And Honourable Speaker, we as this House has a role to play to ensure we don't have issues of corruption going unsolved, Honourable Speaker. And one of the areas that this House has to play, Honourable Speaker, is to ensure the budget we pass. For example, the budget we passed of 3.6 trillion should be used efficiently and should be used in a way that we can stand in the people who have sent, in front of the people who sent us in this House and say we have supervised and we have ensured that the monies have been used in the right way, Honourable Speaker. And the amount of money lost in corruption, Honourable Speaker, previously we have had even the former president coming out to say that the country loses close to 2 billion Kenya shillings a day in corruption. I am very happy to report from the word go that our president has announced himself clearly on the issues corruption, Honorable Speaker. And one of the things that he has said is he will not condone and in any way forgive anybody who is found stealing money that belongs to the public, Honorable Speaker. I want to welcome that move, but it should be accompanied with serious repercussions of anybody that is mentioned with issues of corruption, Honorable Speaker. And I was very happy today to see, Honorable Speaker, the cabinet secretaries signing performance contracts, which involves issues of ethics that are well enshrined in our constitution and that involve usage of our hard-earned resources, Honorable Speaker, in the right way. It is always very painful, Honorable Speaker, to see the way the citizens have really struggled with the increase in the cost of living, whereas, Honorable Speaker, we have had corruption holes in our government today. I would like to call upon this House to be vigilant and to take every single serious corruption issue that gets into this floor, Honorable Speaker, with the seriousness it deserves. And I want to promise the people of Manyata that I will not allow, in my own right, for any amount of money to be lost when I can be able to help that money to be saved, Honorable Speaker. I want to say that if we do that, we can be able to achieve development, Honorable Speaker, that has never been thought of. And it is very easy for the budget that we always read in this House to cover all the things that we are supposed to do, and we reduce on issues of borrowing so that, Honorable Speaker, we can have this country doing what it's called development in the right direction. The loss of money has made corruption to be an issue that
And I'm getting to you. The Honorable Member for Busia County, Honorable Catherine Omayo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really applaud this motion, and it is upon all of us to be responsible to take care of what the people who elected us have bestowed unto us. It has actually reached the end of the tether in this word called corruption, because normally it's theory. People talk about it, leaders talk about it, they come and go. We have heard of people getting billions in this nation, and they hide. Some videos go viral of a member of parliament counting dollars in sacks and hiding in the house. It's better every member, if they have money and they know that they made that money in cleaner ways, to keep the money in the bank. Why should people be digging holes in the house or having sacks and suitcases starched with a lot of cash hiding there? And also, we have had people talking of grace or maybe luck or being in the side of government and saying it is their time to eat, as if it's a joke, until somebody wrote a book about it, as if it is just a joke, and it has been normalized. So it is a high time we stopped just talking about this word corruption and not seal even those gaps that are there for corruption. There is a way, even as a member of parliament, being new, it is already in the system. You are told, if you don't do this, we won't pass this. If you don't part with this, we will put an audit query. If we don't, so we have 3 stages or 4 stages, and every stage you must part with this and this and this, or else we will frame you. We will do what? So you are like, so this is what has been happening since time immemorial. So you find that your work is derailed and nothing is moving because you've not parted with something. Let us give an example of even the recruitment that is coming soon, or the recruitments of police and other dockets that have come before. You just find that for somebody to get a job, they must bribe for them to get a job. A person, a child born from a peasant home, a peasant farmer's home, or a person coming from a family who hardly makes $1 a day. That means if they cannot part with that money.
Member for Bere, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, thank you. Is it in order for the member to impute that this House as corrupt when you want to, yes, when you want to come up with different legislative pieces, that there is corruption in different stages of registration? Is it in order for the member to impute so? Second, is it in order for the member also to impute that the upcoming military recruitment is already corrupt? I think it's completely out of order for the member to impute so, without proper documentation to substantiate so. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
That is how we
Yes, you do. I'm just saying, Honorable Member, you cannot cast aspersions on a ministry or individuals if you do not have the facts. So you can speak generally and just withdraw that.
Thank you, but also it is not good to cover up things. He's imagining it is not happening, but it is happening. If we had some loyal people, honest people, who really want to uproot this so that the real mwananchi from the grassroots gets something, then we should not be imagining that it is not happening. We have evidences, and if you want evidence, I can bring from top to bottom, because bringing from bottom up, I don't know. He actually interfered with me, but I was on track to actually condemn that we can be taking this thing all the way to Qatar and other worlds, talking about it, but it is here with us. So we have to start in our local villages all the way to see how can we best save every dime that we have been allocated to serve wananchi properly, and that every project that has been given to us, maybe to oversight, that project, we don't have maybe people, for example, wanting 10% for every project, for anything to start off. These are basic examples that I'm just using. And we have people who are very good at choreographing everything so that they gain from every single shilling that wananchi have been taxed to help them. Say even in hospitals. Today, if you go to some hospitals, you will be told to go with the gloves and go with your syringe and go with the medicine, because there is no medicine. And examples are given. People text us every day. Members of parliament know here the truth, that people keep texting us to help with the medicine, money for registration, everything from the time you enter the hospital to the time you even see the doctor. You have parted with the money, but you are still sick. So we need a way of sealing the gap, and a way of also making sure that we protect everything, every resource that we have been bestowed to take charge. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, the Honourable Member for Mbere.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this motion because corruption is one of the greatest threats to any economic development and human development in any country in the world. And any house in the world, or any legislative house in the world, whether it is our Kenyan Parliament, or whether it is African Union Assembly, whether it is East Africa Legislative Assembly, must come up with pieces of law or convention or treaties which can be used to tame corruption for the purposes of posterity of our society, of our world. Madam Speaker, this House has a huge responsibility to ensure that we give our judicial system or our justice administrative system pieces of law which are not fair at all, which do not leave any ambiguous areas or gray areas, so that anybody or any institution which is caught in the act of corruption can be taken care of in the most efficient and effective way, so that the resources which are committed to some of these institutions, public resources, can be used properly. Madam Speaker, we have Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act of 2003, an act of parliament which at the moment is 20 years old, and I think, Madam Speaker, it's high time for this piece of law to be refueled so that we can be able to access the successes which this piece of law has been able to achieve. And remember, this piece of law, Madam Speaker, is pre-Constitution 2010. It's not post-Constitution 2010. Therefore, you realize, Madam Speaker, there are sections of that Act of Parliament, as well as some divinations which are not present in that Act of Parliament, so that they can be guiding pillars to our justice administrative system in matters fighting corruption. Madam Speaker, these fights must be made very painful for any person, any institution which get into corrupt activities. It must be made very painful. And that's why today we are happy that the President of the Republic of Kenya is indeed committed in fighting these fights, corruption, but we have to give the President, we have to give the government, we have to give the judicial system pieces of law which will help in fighting corruption. And any effort, whether it is coming from United Nations Convention Against Corruption, whether it is from this House, so long as that piece of law is aimed at fighting corruption, must be tailored in a manner that is going to make corruption a very painful exercise. And as we say, for those who will be corrupt in this government, we would encourage them, we would encourage those in the authority to hang them in the Torres tree at Uhuru Park. I support this motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable members, I wish to recognize the following schools in the Speaker's Gallery. The students and teachers of Moody Awori Primary School from Funyula constituency, Busia County. And Bitini Girls Secondary School, Kitui Rural constituency from Kitui County. And then in the Speaker's Gallery again, we have St. Teresa of the Child of Jesus, Olokirikirai Primary School from Narok North constituency, Narok County. Okay, and then the Honorable Member for Emwar Kidikir, Honorable Johanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity also to weigh in on this particular issue of corruption and the report by the team concerned with the finding ways and means of killing corruption in this country. I want to laud my friend and a senior member in this House, Mheshimiwa from Kisumu, for that great report. I want to just state here, Madam Speaker, that corruption has been the biggest cancer worldwide, internationally, not just locally. it has eaten the fabric of the human society in terms of all the issues that governments try to do. Corruption has always been a blunder. It has always been blundering whatever the government tries to do. And one very unique thing, Madam Speaker, is that corruption is only embedded mostly on the public sector. When you look at the private sector, if it is banks, if it is private companies, if it is private entities, if it is even your own personal private home or your private farm, corruption is almost zero. But when you come to public institutions, public entities, public corporations, ministries, everywhere that has anything to do with public, I think there is a culture where people believe that this is money for free. I remember, Madam Speaker, we used to have some fields which are owned by the government, and we used to call it county grounds. So you can graze there without even payment. So I think there is that mentality, Madam Speaker, where people have equated the public funds, public offices, public institutions, as if it is just there to be wasted. Madam Speaker, it is time, even as a house, sometimes, we speak to the executive without speaking to ourselves as members of this house, Madam Speaker. This house has the greatest responsibility to legislate on how to curb corruption. This house has the mandate to oversight all the corrupt people, either in the executive, in the judiciary, even in this house itself, Madam Speaker. We have the capacity. We have the requisite laws in place that can help to curb corruption in this country. So, Madam Speaker, as much as we might be speaking even to the government, we need to speak to ourselves. We need to begin with ourselves, Madam Speaker, because our government is corrupt when the people who are supposed to oversight those governments are sleeping. Our government becomes corrupt, Madam Speaker, when the legislature is completely broken down. When the legislature or even the judiciary, because, Madam Speaker, the legislature can identify areas where corruption is, but the judiciary are the ones who are supposed to deal with that menace. But you see, Madam Speaker, if the legislature has been compromised, if the judiciary has been compromised, of course the executive can do whatever they want to do. So, Madam Speaker, it is upon this house to really wake up and stop making and whining against the government, yet it is us ourselves, these members of this house, who can bring corruption to zero in this country. I don't know when we will understand also that we have the capacity as even committees, especially the PAC committee, the PIC committee, to ensure that there is totally no corruption in the country. So, in fact, we should be waiting for those members of those committees, Madam Speaker, to table in this house the reports on corrupt cases in every ministry, in every parastatal. Instead of coming here and saying, oh, this ministry is corrupt, this house is whatever, bring us a report. That is the work of PIC, that is the work of PAC, to ensure that there is zero corruption in this country. Apart from that, Madam Speaker, we also have the wastage as part of corruption, where you find ministries plying with so many vehicles, where you find all sorts of employees using very expensive vehicles, consuming a lot of fuel, etc. So, Madam Speaker, I think it is time we also help the government to curb corruption in this country.
The Honorable Member for Siaya County, Honorable Christine Ombaka. She's not here. Okay, the Honorable Member for Marsabit County, Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important report on against corruption. Madam Speaker, we know very well that in the entire world, corruption has affected the growth of every country, and especially our own country here. Madam Speaker, if it were not for corruption, Kenya would have been very far in terms of development and growth, but because of the corruption that has been practiced by different leaders who have been there at different levels, we are where we are today. Madam Speaker, anything or any report, any action against corruption needs our total attention. And that is why I support this report, because I'm one person who really advocates for a country without corruption, because that is where our delivery is, that is where our success is. And if we want to rescue this country from the challenges that we have been in for the last many years, it is only by overcoming this big animal called corruption. Madam Speaker, corruption has been so much institutionalized in our country today. In any place you go to, corruption is practiced. If you want to take your child to a school, to a good high school, you are forced to give money so that you can buy the space. If there are employment, you are forced to dish out money so that you can be lucky to be employed somewhere. And this is what Kenya Kwanza government is against today, because that practice has been there. And I want to congratulate our president, who is our leader today, and who has confirmed and openly declared a war against corruption in our country. And we thank him because he has taken serious steps and measures so that corruption in our country can be controlled. Madam Speaker, I support the report, and it is my prayer that all corrupt leaders at one stage will be in for it and will pay back what they have stolen from the nation. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate because even some religious institutions, some places that we go to, everywhere we visit, people keep saying that corruption is eating our country and has damaged the growth of this country. Madam Speaker, if as a National Assembly today, we all act against it and we make sure that all corrupt people, from the people who are in security team, let's say even the watchmen at the gate, the people, the lift operators, others who are concerned with files at the lands office and all these other places, if today members of parliament will stand up and say that we are all against corruption and we are fighting it fully, I am sure the president will win this war against corruption. And that is why, as one of the leaders today, I want to identify myself with this report and say that I will give my total support for Kenya to grow, for Kenya to prosper, for our people to enjoy the dignity that God has given us, and for any person born and brought up in this country to have equal opportunity without corrupting his or her way for any opportunity that is there before us. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support this report, and it is my prayer that soon and very soon, Kenya will be out. Kenya will be free of corruption. Thank you.
Member for Bumula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I arise to support this motion by Honorable Member, who also happens to be my brother-in-law. He's married from where I come from. Honorable Speaker, corruption is a menace that must be dealt with, and dealt with conclusively. We are where we are today as a country because of corruption. If you remember, in one of his media interviews with the state, the last president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, told us the government is losing almost 2 billion. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta told us that the government is losing almost 2 billion every day. Madam Speaker, if the current administration can just focus on tightening loopholes to corruption, we do not need to increase the budget, for instance. We do not need to increase the taxes so that we can be able to be sustainable as a country. We can be able to pay our own debts as a country. Madam Speaker, it pains me sometimes when you find that some people cannot even afford health care. Some hospitals do not have even medicines. Madam Speaker, the last scene we had of KEMSA, where billions were lost, billions from donors were lost, to an extent that now the government had to return some money to the donors just because of corruption, Madam Speaker. I think as a country, as a government, if we nail it, we are going to succeed. It was not enough for only to sack the PS. It was not enough. We know that it takes two to tango. For instance, in the KEMSA scenario, you must have the giver in corruption and you must have the person receiving. So if the PS was the person receiving, who was the person giving? And a small bird whispered to me that it was the high and mighty. Honorable Angela is trying to guide my contribution by saying it was Gachagwa's son. I didn't say that, Honorable Angela. Please. He's trying to guide my contribution, Madam Speaker. But a small bird whispered to me that it was the high and mighty. So why are we sacrificing the poor PS if now the bigger people who are controlling corruption are working scot-free? They're still hawking around funny stories of shares in this country. And we are supposed as a country to head at a direction that is very definite. Madam Speaker, corruption has really affected us so much.
What's your point of order, Honorable Member?
Madam Speaker, you know, mischievously, the member who is on the floor has been able to mention the name of a person who is not in this house. And for record, I plead that you ask the member to retract, because it is not in order to impute improper motive to the son of the Deputy President, and he's not here to defend himself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I have a lot of respect
Honorable Member.
On my brother.
I think when I heard the first name said, it was actually shouted out by Honorable Wanjala. And Honorable Wanjala, I just want to bring to your attention Standing Order number 107, where it talks about disorderly conduct. A member commits an act of disorderly conduct if the member creates actual disorder, knowingly raises a false point of order, and necessarily interrupts the proceedings, and so on. It goes on to say that the Speaker may call a member whose conduct is disorderly to order, and then caution the member, or order the member to withdraw from the presence of the Assembly for a maximum of 4 days. So I think, Honorable Wanjala, you are duly cautioned in accordance to Standing Order number 107, 2A. So that this is the last warning.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Corruption is really killing this country. That a consignment of sugar jets into the country. It is condemned at the port of Mombasa. Then, Honorable Speaker, we are told that this same sugar found its way on the market, that Kenyans are consuming it. Perhaps we are all moving corpses. Because this government must be serious beyond that, Honorable Speaker. They must arrest. By now, we should be having these people who are involved in sugar industry, from the minister to the PS, to the CEO of KEBS, to the small person, that person who authorized this to happen, Honorable Speaker. As a country, I think we must be serious about corruption. And as a House, I think we must support this government to put measures and to fight these people, high and might. We must do that as a parliament. And we must do that fearlessly. Because even our own factories, our own industries are dying.
Madam Speaker, most of us are products of sugarcane. We've gone through schooling because we plant sugarcane. As I speak today, because of corruption, a factory that was once very vibrant, Nzoia Sugar Company, which has 24,000 nucleus acres of land. We have Mumias Sugar Company, the giant sugar company, Madam Speaker. Today, they are dead as we speak, just because we had people who came in the name of managing directors, who came in the name of CEOs, and they fleeced these companies, Madam Speaker. As we speak, some of them are even rich. Some of them are even in this government. Some of them are even pretending they want to be chief administrative officers employed by the President, William Ruto. We are telling him that, Honorable Ruto, if you want us to also support you, please eliminate these culprits who fleeced Nzoia Sugar Company, who fleeced Mumias Sugar Company, and who are hanging out with you. I support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Bumula. Member for Molo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving this opportunity to contribute to this motion. And from the onset, I would like to congratulate Honorable Shakil Shabil, one of the most experienced legislators of this August House, who keeps being elected by the great people of Kisumu. I think now he's doing his 4th or 5th term. And especially having coming from that area and being elected as an independent, that even adds to that big win and the confidence that the people of Kisumu have on Honorable Shakil Shabil. Honorable Speaker, sometimes I ask myself whether we really hate corruption, or is it just that we miss out on an opportunity to get corrupt? And some of the people and the actions that we keep condemning, even at the floor of the House, that maybe if some people were given an opportunity, then those even scandals would be angelic actions. We need to have a sober and national conversation about the value of hard work. And we must also, as a people and as a country, get to reward hard work and meticulously. Because, Honorable Speaker, the reason why people get an opportunity to plunder public funds or even corruption in the private sector is when they feel that meticulously, diligence, hard work don't really get to pay in especially our government spaces. And when they realize that the person who is able to embezzle the most even becomes the most celebrated person in the society, then those people will do even worse when they get an opportunity. Honorable Speaker, someone mentioned about corruption in our homes. I'd like to give this example of how our parents treat their siblings, where the one who has the biggest car and the one who is perceived to be the richest in that homestead, when they go home for Christmas, then it is the best part of the meat that is reserved for them. And that person, that uncle, that auntie, who spends a whole year taking care of that old parent, gets dismissed and doesn't even get to have a seat anywhere in the conversation of that family gathering. Because even when we appreciate that there is nothing wrong in having wealth, there's nothing wrong with having a lot of resources, we must also agree that it's not all of us who are able to accumulate or to have so much resources. And therefore, those people, even in our homes, that their mere contribution to that particular homestead is staying with our grandparents, staying with our old parents and taking care of them. The money that you send at the end of the month may not take care of the parents. So once we come up from that particular thing, and you see it, even when we post the photos we post on social media, and that is what our young people feed on. Then we celebrate one when you have taken a photo in a big car. But when you are on a motorcycle or when you are walking, then it is not as celebrated. Because once we stop that appreciating of that hard work and just celebrate wealth for the sake of it, it runs into the culture that we see in our society. But how do we address this over and above the generational conversation by reward of hard work? Is by making sure that our government system actually gets to work. And I kept saying this, and it's good that the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning has taken this upon themselves to move our accounting systems in this country from cash accounting to accrual accounting. Because what you see at the end of every financial year and after the end, especially and again when you're approaching elections, is this need to spend everything. Because if you don't spend everything, then it's quote unquote returned to the national treasury. And so this gives a chance and an opportunity for these government officers to steal. But if you have an accrual system where it doesn't matter whether it is June or July, then those particular expenses programs that are budgeted for will continue, then that, I think, would be a policy direction to help end corruption in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Pauline Lenguris, member for Samburu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the discussion that is on the floor of this House. Madam Speaker, I want to say that corruption has become a great disease in this country and other countries also. Corruption has taken us back for many years, and we have seen many of our people suffering due to effects of corruption. We have gotten a lot of resources in this country, and if our resources were put into the right action, I'm sure we could not be where we are today. Madam Speaker, we are not only saying that corruption happens with money. There are a lot of processes that are corrupted in this country, and we are seeing most of our children who are graduates not getting jobs because they must know somebody in certain offices. We have seen also corruption in the private sector, in terms of employment, in terms of getting businesses, even in government. We have also seen a lot of corruption even in the churches. So corruption is all over and all around us. And this calls for the responsibility of each and every one of us. I've had people pointing fingers to the government, and I think when we stand here, we are all government. Because in one way or another, we are all concerned with what is happening in this country. So we must all take the responsibility to ensure that in whatever we do it without any kind of corruption. Corruption in this country has taken us back in terms of development. We have seen a lot of money, even in different levels of government. For example, the money that has been sent to the county government. There are places in this country today where women still go for water for 20 hours, carrying water with donkeys. And you can imagine how much money has been sent to the county government